Good evening, everyone. I am your host, Dennis Spillman, and welcome to this edition of Art and Victory, where I am severely underdressed today with our panelists. We are here to celebrate the upcoming Soonercon, Oklahoma's premier pop culture convention, and I am here with some wonderful people. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves to our audience. Take it away.
My name is Levi, but I go by Lavicious Cosplay as my moniker.
I'm Chelsea, also known as Sith Princess Cosplays.
And my name's Rachel. I don't really have a cosplay name, but I do have like a photography business, so I just kind of go by that. But it's R Karch Photography. But Rachel is perfectly fine.
All right, Rachel. Hey, you have the name already for photography business. Might as well use it for cosplay. It's one less social media account to handle, I'd say. All right, so I'd like to get started. I'd like to know a little bit more about each of you and how you got interested and started with cosplay.
Well, I want to say 2017, I went to Fan Expo Dallas. That was my first convention ever. Big convention. Huge. I was there to see Stanley, but I really enjoyed all the cosplay that I saw there and how excited everybody was to wear them and how good they looked and all of that. And then years later, I bought my first cosplay. This is actually it right now. And I wore that, entered a cosplay contest, learned a lot about what it takes to win a cosplay contest. And then I started making pieces and fast forward 2022, proposed to my fiance on stage, and we won first place for novice that year.
Aw.
So I started in high school, probably early 2009, 2010. In theater, I would do 2 shows a year, and then I got into Haunted Trail, so I would do special effects makeup, scene setting, striking, the whole 9 yards. And then in 2017, I enlisted in the Air Force as security forces, and that's what I did for 6 years. I met him in 2021. Where I found a new love for cosplay. I was able to put things together and make these characters come to life, which was a way I'd never looked at it before. And now I'm here. So it's been a ride.
It's really quite, I think it's an interesting question because every time I get asked that, I change my answer a little bit. Because I reflect on my life and like, where did this weird passion really come into play, which has become just commonplace to me now. It's not weird anymore. But really, it started when I was a little girl, and my dad would take me to go see Star Wars films, like Episode 1, Episode 2, that stuff, and we would actually wait in line at the theater for like a full day, sometimes 2 days, to see these movies, and people would dress up in line as characters, and I know Star Wars Episode 1, I was not a character. Star Wars Episode 2, I was Queen Amidala, and I was ready to watch this film. So I was fairly young. I think I was like maybe 12, 13 years old as Queen Amidala, and that's like been my favorite character for a really long time. But I think that was really my first time cosplaying because that was without like some event like Halloween or something like that. And it was based on fandom, right? That was probably the first character that I was like, I am obsessed with this character. I want to be them. And so that's probably where I really started. Since then, I've done numerous cosplays, and I really started getting involved in the community in 2012.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper for the beginners. What makes a great cosplay?
That's very subjective, but to me, it's creating something that you're proud of. If people are happy wearing something that they buy, that's perfectly fine also. But for me, it's putting work into something and being satisfied with the result and seeing looks on other people's faces where they're like also excited to see a character that you've created and to see you become that character. That's great to me.
I think I can agree with him, being subjective. I know I have a couple cosplays, like Mirko, for example, that I purchased, and she's absolutely a comfort cosplay for me. If I can't ever make my mind up, I'm going to wear Mirko most likely. But I know when I see other people at conventions and I'm like, oh my God, you look absolutely outstanding. And just seeing their faces light up, like, to me, that signifies that somebody is happy with what they're in. They're comfortable and they're excited to get that kind of attention, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, cosplay serves in different capacities. So I think depending on what you're doing, that could determine what a really good cosplay for that event would be. So like if you're in a contest, which you'll see that a lot, if you're in cosplay, what a great cosplay for a contest is going to be different than what you're comfortable in. And for me, since I'm like an old person now, I like
We're the same
comfort.
age.
I like comfort. I love comfort. So anytime I can make it look accurate, but like be as comfortable as possible, that is the greatest cosplay to me. So it doesn't matter to me if it's been made, it's what you're comfortable in and happiest in. That's the best. Especially like if you're working at charity events and working with kids at like hospitals and things like that, there's like a specific dress of Snow White that I will wear for that. If I were to compete in Snow White, it would be a different dress, if that makes sense.
Because you're going to want something a little bit more durable that might not be as detailed for one versus the other as well. So it just really depends on the situation, which is an important thing to consider. I do want to ask before we get too deep, not everyone knows everything. I'd like you to just kind of go around and tell me who you are today.
Oh, right. So we actually all decided, because we coordinate with each other quite a bit, especially us as we're married. But we're from My Hero Academia. I'm Lemillion Mirio Togata. This is his superhero outfit, Million, because he wants to save 1 million people, and I admire that. And his attitude is what I love about him.
I am Mirko, Big Hero number 5, and also the Bunny Hero.
I'm Najiri, and I am playing her because she's comfortable, but also her personality is really bubbly and she's kind of funny. And I feel like I am that way sometimes, or at least aspire to be that way. But yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is her very, very long wig, which is always something I try to avoid if I can. But some of the greatest characters have long hair. I don't know why that is.
This isn't a Mirko wig. It's my Spider-Gwen wig, but I don't like Mirko's 100-centimeter long wig, so I wear this one instead, and it works just fine.
Hey, comfort is key.
Yes.
So I'd like to ask, what advice would you like to give to someone who is getting started into cosplay but might feel intimidated?
Oh, yeah, I can start. If you're feeling intimidated, they all looked at me, so, okay. So to get started and you feel intimidated, I think the first thing is to find a character that you want to do, that you're passionate about, that you can relate to. And that's the first step, right? You're like, oh, I really like, I don't know, like Lucy McLean, because Fallout just came out. I really like that character. I want to embody that character. So the first step is really just to look it up. Look up that character online and just be like, Lucy McLean cosplay, and see what other people are doing. And that is really inspiring in itself. But also you can get a lot of tips and things like that because everybody likes to share their process. And I've learned so many cool things that I would never come up with. Like, people are so ingenious with these designs that are like comfortable, but all practical and cheap at sometimes. So I think honestly, just looking at things up and not being afraid to look it up online and all of that, that's what I would do first.
Yeah, no, I can 100% agree with Najiri on that one. Do your research. If you're not already like 100% headstrong, like every single detail about this character, like some people do. I'm personally not one of those people. I necessarily don't pay that much attention sometimes. But for me, when I first started actually cosplaying in 2021, I 100% was that intimidated person. So I found a character that I identified a lot with. Again, you'll hear me reference it a lot, but a comfort cosplay. And for me, that's Asuna from Sword Art Online. So the costume showed up, and the first time I put her on, I cried for like an hour and a half because I was like, oh my God, like this is the most outstanding feeling ever. And for me, it made it that much easier to go into public to my first anime convention, as this character that I'm like, I want to embody the kind of personality that she carries as it is. And so that was really like empowering for me and made it so much easier.
For me, it's don't take yourself too seriously. Like, it's all fun, and you're going to have a lot of feelings, like I did, for sure, because I went by myself, wearing this my first time. I bought this in the middle of COVID. I wasn't doing anything, so I spent my money on a costume, and really just have fun. You can buy something, have fun with it, build on it. That's how I started. I bought something and then I started to progress. I'm sure we'll go more over that, but just have fun.
I do want to touch on this just a little bit deeper because we've talked about finding comfort in characters. So what tips do you give to people for selecting their first costume outfit?
So for me, they've kind of said it already, but find someone or something that you're passionate about. It'll be more rewarding in the long run because you get to become one of your favorite characters. You get to get outside of yourself. I feel more comfortable in my skin today being a cosplayer amongst cosplayers, and there's no greater feeling, really.
Yeah, no, I can 100% agree with that. If you look at my repertoire of characters, like I have a Miss Frizzle cosplay who, teaches children these like science lessons and takes them on all these adventures, right? And when I was little, that was the kind of person that I aspired to be, somebody that teaches people things all the time. I have Daki from Demon Slayer, Urza Scarlet from Fairy Tail, Asuna, all these powerful female characters. And for me, in a way, it was a form of trauma healing. And it was a way for me to present as that powerful person that outside of cosplay, I didn't feel like. And so that was healing for me in itself, outside of therapy and everything else going on. But that was how I started to work on myself.
I'll say when I started getting more involved, like in the cosplay community, I had a lot of friends that I would work with, like we wanted cosplay characters together that we all really liked or identified with, and that was also really helpful to just be like oh, we're gonna do this together. So it's not only motivating, but also like really rewarding to be able to be like these really awesome characters with your friends. Like a common combo, like I've done multiple iterations of like the Powerpuff Girls, and like we have like I do the Sanderson sisters and stuff like that. So just like getting a group together really will help you like inspire you and also make you feel more comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, especially if you can get like a group of friends and maybe it's all from the same show or the same game. That does make it more fun. And you can do some really fun group photos and just be each other's buddy. So I would like to go in some on the focus on what are some skills beginners should focus on when getting started?
Just depends really on the direction you want to go. I started with foam work. It's pretty easy as far as there's so many tutorials on YouTube and there's so many free. So I use Pepakura, which is basically paper craft.
Okay.
And you can use those patterns for foam. And then those foam patterns you can then turn into a helmet or something. And of course, there's a lot of lessons to learn while you're doing that. What kind of glue to use, how to cut properly, making it look clean. That comes with time and those lessons. I feel like foam building is pretty easy to start with, but that's just me. Everybody's different. So for me, it was foam smithing.
I'm in the same boat as this one. My first fully built by me, minus my sword. He did 90% of the work on this one. I painted it, but 100% is foam smithing. It's my Urza Scarlet Blackwing armor from the Fairy Tail series. And I think I remade my bodice 6 or 7 times in the span of 6 months, getting up to the 8 weeks that we put all of our time into these builds. I definitely learned a lot through quite a few pieces of foam across the house. It doesn't go very far, it's just foam. But I definitely learned a lot about the level of patience that I have with some things and when I need to take a break, or when I can hyper focus on something and actually get it done, and then bring out this award-winning cosplay at the end.
So Levi had mentioned something like it depends on what you really want to get into. There are all different skills that come into play when building a cosplay, especially like a master class one. And people have like their own specialties. So some people really excel at sewing, and some people really excel at foam work. Some people excel at plastic work. Some people excel at wig design. And everybody in the community feels like they have this is my specialty, right? I also started with foam work like they did. And the reason for that is because it is fairly accessible and it is fairly cheap compared to other cosplay material. And so it's a really good starting point, but also you can make some really epic things where you're like, oh, wow, I made this whole armor set. This is super cool. And so it's kind of a little bit more, it's different than like regular clothes, right? You have armor pieces, like that's not normal, right? So that's like a cool thing to do. So I think a lot of people start off with like prop building or armor making because of that reason. But when you get more involved into it and things like that, you'll realize that there are specialty areas that people end up falling into.
So you would recommend foam is a good kind of, if you want to like get crafty, foam's pretty good route to go. You
Yes.
did briefly talk about costs because materials can be expensive,
Right.
regardless of what's going on in the world. How do you balance all of that?
To the best of your ability. So, like, for example, I try to use typical EVA foam, which comes in rolls. That's not always the cheapest, but you can go to, say, Harbor Freight is the only thing I can think of right now, but they have foam mats that you can buy. And they have these packages of mats. Comes with like four squares, $9.99.
The puzzle floor mats, yeah.
Okay.
Not a big deal. Be safe every time because when you heat that up, it's not great to breathe in. So always be safe. But make sure you take that into account in anything that you do. But the glue and knives and all that stuff is fairly cheap, and you can get it pretty easily.
Pretty
Yeah.
much anywhere, yeah, glue and knives.
Yeah.
Is there a particular knife that works really well for foam?
So razor,
Box cutters.
cutter knives. I sharpen mine. I make mine last as long as I can. I won't continue to use new blades or anything like that because it's cost effective to just keep sharpening that same blade.
I did have somebody once call my X-Acto knife a scalpel, and I really liked that. I was like, yes, that's the tool I'm
great.
using.
Good surgery.
That's great. I know for me, like what Rachel was saying about, having this group of friends and you want to come together and build this group cosplay, right? I know sometimes if I'm working on a build and I realize that I've gone through every bit of 5mm foam that I have, I'll call Rachel and be like, hey, do you happen to have any of this? And sometimes it turns into a barter. So, I'll have like extra fabric laying around in the color that she just so happens to need. We'll swap materials or, like I had one of my military friends who was, she was moving away for service and literally handed me this like 30-gallon tote full of cosplay stuff. And she's like, I want it to go to good use and I know that you'll use it. So for me, it's about having that friendship, that community around you to, number one, barter when you need to. Like 10 out of 10, I'll recommend it easily.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a lot of bartering going on. If you don't have it, I have it, and let me help you. And everybody wants to help. Like everybody.
Oh, yeah.
will be like, why didn't you tell me you needed a blue wig on this day? I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had it. But there's a lot of that going on, which is great. I love that. And a lot of skill trade too. Like, oh, I will sew this shirt for you if you style my wig, which I think is a really great system. But for cost wise, yes, bartering is a great way. But also a lot of people want to they see these amazing cosplays online and made out of products that are expensive. And yes, unfortunately, when you spend more money on a product, the results tend to be better. But that doesn't mean that it's not equally amazing. I didn't start really making my armor with foam I really started with cardboard. Like I started with cardboard boxes, and I know that you guys have Amazon boxes laying around like I do, and so that is a great resource. Just like even cardboard and things like that. And as Levi had mentioned, though, like safety procedures and things like that, which I always get on to people about all the time.
She
Like, wear
fusses
your
at us
mask.
frequently.
But like always look stuff up, like look that stuff up when you're creating cheaper materials, because some of them are not as safe as, because they're not made for that, right? So like cardboard, for example, if you're making a mask out of cardboard that holds moisture, because it's not sealed properly, it can cause bacteria growth in your mask, right? So like always be really careful when using cheaper materials, but they are totally valid and they are just as good, even though they don't look as slick as some other material. It's still amazingly awesome, and it's still a skill set that is just as good as that. Even if you're using cheaper product, it's still the same skill set.
Yeah, because a lot of it you're saying is easily transferable. If you get good on cardboard, it's easier to go to a different material.
Also, upcycling. You have clothes
Oh,
in your
yeah.
closet. You can use things that you already have, or at Goodwill or wherever you might find something, and alter it to fit your needs.
Yeah, I found my Miss Frizzle dress at Goodwill, so I can 100% support that decision.
So what's a lesson you learned about costume design the hard way?
Urza. Like I said earlier, I went through 6 different variations of the exact same bodice for it to be made at the end the way I had done it the first time when he told me how to do it the first time. But I had to learn those lessons myself. I had to go through and make those mistakes myself because I like to do things the hard way. You know, he'll give me advice and I'll be like, no, I'm going to do it my way. And then my way doesn't work. But at the end, you know, relying on advice from other people, he at the time had more foam experience than I did. So, you know, relying on his advice. And at this point in my cosplay building career, you know, relying on advice from Rachel as an extremely experienced cosplayer compared to myself. So, relying on advice from other people is never a bad thing.
Yeah, seek help when needed. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to ask for help.
One of the harder lessons, probably being too afraid to start again, and learning. You know, you have to learn that you have to heat seal foam, because there's pores in there. You want to close them up so the paint doesn't go through, or because if you do that and then you paint it, you're gonna have to start all over. So, but also in that, don't be afraid to start again.
I try to learn by observing. I've had my own hard lessons, and then I see people struggling in their cosplay, so I try to learn from them. But I think comfortable footwear is definitely my #1 lesson,
Yes.
because I went in strong, like when I started. But as I continued to work in the community and stuff, I had more and more responsibilities within it, where I became more and more on my feet and busy. And so comfortable shoes are not an option, it's a requirement. I don't care if it messes up my cosplay, I'm wearing comfortable shoes. And I advise that to everybody, because that will just ruin your day. And then I want to go home, you'll be crying, you'll want to rip off your cosplay. Just get those comfortable shoes. That is something I learned pretty quick. And I still see people struggling with it, you know. So that's #1 is the shoes.
And it seems like you can make an easy compromise there too. If you do want to wear the fancy shoes, wear them for a little bit for the photos, and then put on something comfortable. So there's a way you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I would like to ask, how has cosplay helped you in terms of confidence and self-expression?
Immensely. I remember my first time going up on stage. I'm not a get up in front of people person to perform or do anything, and you never grow in life until you get outside your comfort zone. So I did that, and I was like, sure, why not? And I did that because I don't really have a reason, but I was hooked afterwards. And so really it's just, again, I know I said it earlier, but don't take yourself too seriously. Many times she can attest that I'll do because like I'll practice their saying or whatever, and I'll do it, and then I'll visibly laugh at myself on stage.
I have video to prove it too, so.
So, I mean, I still get nervous. When I proposed to her on stage, my hand was like trying to put the ring on her finger.
Yep.
And yeah, but I still get nervous, but I get through it. And really, it's not a lot of time that you're in front of people.
Yeah.
It goes by pretty quick.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my repertoire of characters that I have are, seemingly powerful female characters. And for me, that was a form of trauma healing. So to say that it has completely surpassed any expectation that I had of how it would affect my self-confidence. My Urza Blackwing armor is a completely, fully exposed midriff area, and I thought nothing of it walking around all day. I panicked about it up until the day of, but once I was finally in character and, people were like, oh my gosh, it's Urza, taking pictures with me, it was not a thought at all in the back of my head. It wasn't until later when I took the costume off that I'm just like, I'm never wearing this again. And it literally has been in the closet since then. But yeah, it's a form of, healing parts of me that I never thought I would be able to, which in turn sort of helps to, I don't want to say correct, because it doesn't necessarily correct anything, but it helps me in processing, body dysmorphia issues and things like that. And I definitely think it's gotten significantly better in the last couple years than what it was.
And it is a big confidence booster when
Yes.
people come up to you and they're like, can I get a picture with you? And they're so excited to see the character that you are. That's,
It's a 10 out of 10
Yeah.
feeling for sure.
Well, I'll just be honest and say I continually struggle with that, and I want to be transparent and say that there's a lot of people who continually struggle with it, and cosplay is not a magic band-aid for that at all. But the people in the community, they almost are like a magic band-aid, because when I'm not feeling confident, I just take a photo and I'll be like, what do you guys think? And they're always positive. Like, oh my gosh, girl, yes, you look amazing. They always tell you what you need to hear. And I have never, ever been chastised, bullied, or insulted about my body or what I'm wearing or my size or anything like that in cosplay. And it's been the one place where people have accepted me, accepted my body type and things like that. In other communities that I've been involved in, not so much. So that is one thing that's really wonderful about the community. Historically, it has not been that way. And the last 10 years or so, there's been a real push to be accepting of all body types, all walks of life and everything like that. When I do hear people criticizing in any way, they usually tend to be people outside of the community that I've noticed. But yeah, and so it's when I would say it helps me because I see other people who are, I will say, that they're a larger size, but I always think they look incredible. And even that, just seeing people being confident themselves and looking incredible and looking their best, I'm like, I want to be them. I want to be them so bad. So I think it really helps me in that way too.
That's good to hear, because I feel that sometimes. I thought maybe I should dress up and for this panel discussion. No, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I'm just again. I think we all have issues with our appearances, and it's so relatable. I do want to talk. You kind of talked about this a little bit already. I would kind of like to dive into when you're on stage and you're presenting yourselves. Can you kind of give some tips for people kind of doing stage work, maybe dealing with the anxiety, the nervousness of the whole ordeal?
plan.
If they give you give you the script before you go up there, instead of 10 minutes before, that helps.
Yeah, I mean, that's true too. So if you're able to plan, or I will look at whatever character I'm doing and I'll go back and watch YouTube videos. Sometimes just you can find clips and I'm like, all right, what's their move? How do they look? What do they do? How do they act? It's cosplay. It's not just a costume. You're not just standing there. So you want to to be part of it, you want to kind of act it out. And That's kind of, I get into that mode. I am someone else. I'm not Levi right now. I'm Lavicious Cosplay playing Lemillion. So it's just, and it's the fun of it for sure.
Yeah, so the best advice that I have, and this comes from a place of experience. The one time that I was on stage for the contest was my Urza Blackwing armor and his Jalal the night he proposed. But my wig was in my eyes like this, and I could not see anything. Like, I knew that he was on this side of me, and we walked to the end, and I saw him stop, so I stopped, like, out of the corner of my eye, like how I can see Rachel. Like, I had no idea, like, what part of the stage we were at. I just knew we were on stage. And then we turn around to walk back, and I'm going to beeline it that way to go leave. And I hear the MC say something, and I turn around to look at him, and the only reason that I knew what was happening was because I could see the top of his head from the bottom of my vision right here. I couldn't see anything. I had no idea what was happening, and then there's just this roar from the crowd, and I was like, oh God, I know what he's doing. Oh God, and I like launched my sword across the stage. Prepare your cosplays the best that you can to be functional. 100%. My armor, I could not sit down in. I literally had to take the entire thing off just to sit down to drink a glass of water during the day. So needless to say, was not hydrated that day. I had a lot of repairs that I had to make. So you want to make sure that what you're presenting, you know, is comfortable. Again, you're going to hear that a lot, but comfortable, functional. And considering, you know, that is what some cosplay judges look for, you know, how functional is it? How well does it hold up? But you also want to make sure that you can do things during the day, drinking water, sitting down to take a break, you know, see where you're walking and make sure your wig's not in your face. I think that's probably going to be the number one, like, best advice that I have for that.
Yeah, and I think too, you guys have been on stage more than you're giving yourself credit for, like especially when you're doing things like superhero school and preparing for acting in that way.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I feel like you should talk about that. I feel like I'm going to bring that up for you, but I can touch base on that and then go back to you.
Yeah.
But you know, yes, there's like the element of going on stage and doing competing. There's also panels that cosplayers are often on, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's true. Panels, yeah.
And then there's also things like superhero school at New World Comics that where you do performances for kids. And so I think like I always get scared before I do that stuff. So first of all, let's just normalize the feeling. Like it's okay. And it's, you know, honestly, it's a little good for you. You get a little bit of an adrenaline rush every time I
Yes.
do it. It doesn't matter if there's one kid out there or 20, it's the same rush. And at the end of the day, or like at the end of it, it's just, I'm just happy it's done and we did it. We were successful. It was great. Nobody is up there to watch you, to judge you. That's the thing. Like, I know it sounds weird hearing that from a contest, but like, the judges are there to judge you. The audience isn't there to judge you. They're there to celebrate you.
Yes.
And the judges themselves are celebrating you. And I think the more I see judges crying all the time because they want to give everybody they want to give everybody a prize because everybody's done so much work and so passionate about it. So, but anyway, that's the one thing, like they're not actually judging you, they're celebrating you. And I want you all to know that, like, it's not about judging you, it's about celebrating your work and your, and the accomplishments that you've made. Even just getting up on stage with a bot cosplay is an accomplishment.
Yes.
So yeah, as she was mentioning, we do also do superhero school for kids every other Saturday at New World Comics, like she mentioned, and we there's themes. So sometimes Justice League, sometimes it's what do they do recently? Teen Titans, and we'll get into those characters, and it'll be kind of a lesson for the kids. It was just kids, but I was still nervous the first time.
yeah.
I'm like, I gotta actually like play this character, but it's also rewarding in its own way. Like these kids are excited to see you, and you get to be with your friends and be silly and make the kids laugh. And
Yes.
she's done it way more than I have.
The
But
kids might say something funny. They'll be like, "Oh, you look a little different in the
Yeah,
movies.
you look different than you did last time.
You look a little different." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
It's great. 100%. Like, it doesn't matter how many superhero schools I go to. We'll be in the backstage area getting ready, and I'll look down and my hands are shaking, and I'm like hyperventilating almost, and I'm like, okay, let's go, Rogue. We've got this, because I do 1990s Rogue. Again, you know, a character that I'm extremely comfortable with, that I resonate with a lot. I do Poison Ivy, you know. I do tend to gravitate towards those characters that I am most comfortable in. But even performing in front of small kids, you know, they're going to ask you questions about your backstory, like, well, how did Poison Ivy get those plant powers there, buddy? And I'm just like, well, you know. So, you know, knowing the background comes in handy 100% too for the characters that you're playing, for sure.
We're in the back looking at Wikipedia right before we go
It's
out.
so bad.
Like I was tuxedo mask one time, and I'm like, all right, what does he do? So I went out, I threw the rose, and I went back, and they're like,
He did. It was awesome.
Great job.
You got it. It's like, I forgot what I said, but and they're like, go back out there so they can ask questions. I was like, I know, I will. All right. And I went back out.
Yeah,
but-
even the kids up front were like asking all the Sailor Moon characters, "Where's Tuxedo Mask? Where's he at? Where's he at?" And they're like, "We know he'll be back." It was so funny.
That is very on brand.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about safety, because safety is important, as you all have expressed. But safety is kind of a broad term. So, like, I'd like to hear some tips for, you know, if you're in your cosplay, you're here at Soonercon or any con. What are some good tips for staying safe? That includes everything from, like, harassment to feeling safe to, like, managing your ID and your wallet, and also just being safe in your costume and not face planting.
Maybe we should answer it like you answer. Maybe you talk about water.
Okay.
Talk about cosplay stuff. I can talk about harassment or something like that.
All right, yeah, take it away.
Yeah.
So as far as like keeping your information, phone, things like that on you, none of us have pockets right now. So
Pockets do not exist here.
I have a little backpack that I carry with me. It doesn't always match my cosplay, but it carries all my things. I keep Tylenol, eye drops, because I wear contacts sometimes.
Phone chargers.
My head is killing me right now, so I'll
Pull out that ibuprofen.
yeah, exactly. So that, and then, you know, she'll talk about the harassment, but have a buddy system. Like
100%.
I've
Yeah.
gone to cons by myself in the beginning before I met all these awesome people. But, you know, have a buddy system, check on each other. Like we said, be comfortable, but know your limits also. Like, I will take wig breaks, is what we call them. We'll
Yep.
just go outside, take our wig off, let our foreheads rest. But as far as cosplay, I mean, and there's a lot of people I know that incorporate pockets into
Yes.
their, like our Mandalorian friends, or a lot of them wear armor and stuff, and they'll have handlers that help them because you can't do everything all yourself if you're in a giant costume. So
I've seen people even like make purses or bags that
Yeah.
aren't necessarily like the character has that, but it's like on brand. You know,
Yeah.
like Tinkerbell or something
Yeah.
might have like a leaf purse or something.
Oh, yeah, that's cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, my ears keep falling off. And at that point, I can't hear
It's all-
anything.
it's all part-
So
part of it.
anybody that is close enough to me to know me knows that I don't drink water like I'm supposed to. He yells at me pretty frequently. Even does it at work. He'll message me and he'll be like, "Have you drank any water today?" And I'm like, "No, but we're not going to talk about it right now." 100%. It is crucial to hydrate. You know, if you are in something as big and as bulky as an Urza armor, for example, and you know that you have to take it off to take a break, go take that break. Sit down and actually eat something, because again, anybody that knows me knows that I probably have snacks in my backpack and that's all I'm going to eat that day, or chicken nuggets at like 6 a.m. and then nothing until midnight. Take care of your body first and foremost. That is the most important thing. You don't want to, you know, suffer any kind of heat related injury or anything like, you know, like not having enough food. Sorry, I can't find my words right now. But like not eating properly during the day, you know, and then issues with your sugar, which can happen to anybody. hydrate, and eat something other than just chicken nuggets.
Yes. Good. Good. Hydrate.
Yes, hydrate.
That is something I learned pretty quick too, like hydrating. And then Levi also mentioned having friends to help you and all of that. When you start cosplaying and getting involved in the community and stuff, you'll develop a friendship with the people fairly quickly, and they always have your back. They're always like, "Did you drink water? Did you eat?" And it's gotten to the point, which is amazing. Like, I love this. Like, people are always checking on me. Are you okay? Are you okay? And that's pretty much the mentality of the community, is making sure everybody is okay.
It's like a pack mentality.
Yeah, we just want to make sure you're okay. Oh, I noticed your feet are hurting because you chose to not wear good shoes. Do you need some food? You know, that kind of stuff. But harassment-wise, inevitably, since we're dealing with a large group of people, especially when we're doing, larger conventions and dealing with people that are not necessarily used to cosplay or things like that, most of the conventions have policies put in place that kind of guide you of what to do when an incident occurs. Soonercon has a really good policy, and they guide their volunteers and kind of give them directions on how to help people when there is something that occurs. And that's pretty much the standard there. So I really encourage people, for whatever convention that you're going to look at their policies and how to handle that, because inevitably something will happen, because you're dealing with thousands and thousands of people, right? Hundreds of that, I don't know. Like, something might happen. And if you see something, you need to do something about it. Don't just observe and go, oh, wow, okay. Say something, get some help. I don't think you should keep it secret. If you're comfortable, say something, of course. There's usually there's security, there's staff that are ready to help you and happy to help you if something is going on.
I'm over these ears.
Oh, there goes the ears.
Ears down, down. It's okay. It's cool.
But yeah, and reporting it, saying something, that's the number one thing. Because if something is not said, something is not reported, something can't be done. And unfortunately, if we don't report it and say something, these people think that they can do it again, right? So we need to put a stop to it when we can. I think a lot of people are very aware of that. And, I would say people in the community are aware of that. And I think that was 2015, maybe 16, there was a big movement that came out that was called Cosplay is Not Consent. And that is the go-to motto at every convention I see, whether they follow that or not, that is generically the rule. So it's, just because you were romantic with that character in a video game doesn't mean they're gonna do that in real life. Okay, you need to talk to people, ask permission for hugs, ask permission for photos, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, follow the platinum rule. Treat people the way they want to be treated. And that involves asking first. Photo, hug, touch, anything, ask. Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. Be respectful of them, and even just ask as you're doing things. Kind of like to ask, now we're talking about community. What are some fun things that you can also do besides convention that kind of give back to the community? Because community is very important. It's how you get connected, find new people, and kind of find out just all the great stuff that's happening. So tell me a little bit about some different types of community involvement that you're in, and how people, where they can search for, what are some things that people just don't think of, maybe outside of conventions? Because we talked about, sometimes people just dressing up for movies and such. I mean, that's great too.
So I know that a group that we're in is a fantastic place. We plan meetups. We have photography events. We do superhero
events,
school,
charity.
charity
Yeah.
events. We do charity events. There's all kinds of charity organizations, but I know Oklahoma Cosplayers is a group on Facebook we're all a part of that. Everybody that posts there, it's very well moderated. We keep everybody safe. If anything seems sketchy or maybe we should ask questions, we will. But that's where we do plan. A lot of people will plan meetups, and again, there's a bunch of groups that are in Oklahoma cosplayers. I don't know how many people are in that group, like thousands, but it's a great place to where you can find events that are going on around Oklahoma, especially.
I fully second Oklahoma Cosplayers Facebook page. And speaking of the types of events that you can find there, I know 2 years ago, 2022, I think, we volunteered with a good friend of ours at a charity that he's working on building himself, and it's called Funds for Small Heroes. We traveled all the way to Tulsa. We were also in Kirito for the day. We got to hang out, with cosplay friends. We got to hang out with kids in the community in Tulsa, and that is a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital. So that hits home with me at this point in time. I have a niece who is battling leukemia, so that is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Again, it ties into finding things that you're passionate about, right? I know we have a lot of charity groups. Oklahoma has Real Okie Superheroes. They go to like the baseball park for was it like a Spider-Man night or a Marvel night? And there were like Spider-Men everywhere, like just littering the stadium. And I wasn't there personally. I wish I had been. But just seeing, the excitement on the kids' faces and the way that they get involved with the community. They go to children's hospitals. They do like movie premiere events. There's places, like DZ Comics that will have like cosplay days where you can show up in costume and wander around the store and meet other people. You could run into people like the Oklahoma City Ghostbusters. You'd be surprised at who you would run into at just super sporadic events like that for sure.
So thank you for talking about Oklahoma cosplayers. I am one of the admins for that group, and it has grown to be like a passion. It's like my life. I love it. So I appreciate those kind words. I thank you. But also what's really nice is it's just like a hub like of information, and that's usually how it serves. So it's like you get information for like what events are coming, right? However, it's like, how do you learn about that stuff? And it's going to conventions is like the first step, and that's how you get involved in the community, get to know people. So like going to places like Soonercon, you're going to definitely run into people who are in that group that are going to help you get connected. So that's, and then they're going to be like, oh, we have a charity event coming up. You should come. I love your aerial. You would be great, right? And a lot of times they'll see your cosplays that you're taking to conventions, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love that. Would you be interested in helping us with this? So kind of like a starting point are conventions like Soonercon, and then getting online and getting involved in those communities. So we've got like they said, we have charity things that happen. We have charity calls. We have photo shoot calls. We have meetups, all types of things that are listed on there that will get your itch, I would say, because it's so much. Like I can't attend everything. I wish I could, because there's so many cool activities that are going on. But yeah.
That's always a good problem to have, is there's too much going on.
Is it? Okay. I'm going to remember that.
It really is, just because with tourism and stuff that I deal with, just keeping people connected with like local events is like, man, I can't keep up with it. It's just, there's so much going on, which is nice. That's a good community, and you don't have to worry about that FOMO, because there will always be something else too. So we've talked about the photo op events, of course, and we've also talked about sometimes people want to take photos. So, I mean, this is a little bit different than just taking photos with cosplayers. It's a little bit different. So tell me, I guess some tips for getting good photos.
So for me, I was definitely very awkward at first, and I'd go back and look at my pictures, and I'm like,
He still is.
I mean, I'm awkward constantly.
We're all awkward
But
here.
Yes.
I remember I'd look and I'd be like, oh, I could have bent my knees, or I could have, get into the character. And a lot of that is, again, looking at how your character might pose for something, whereas pictures, you're like just trying to be pretty, but these are trying in cosplay you're in action kind of, so you want it to be action type poses or pretty or whatever your character is. It really depends, but a lot of that again is for me, I'll look for inspiration in pictures. If we're having a photo shoot, which we do, we'll be like, I'll pull up my phone, be like, all right, I want to do this one now, and so we'll and a lot of good photographers will help pose you as well. They'll help you get into, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then they're like, well, do this or do this. And I'm like, all right, cool.
I 100% agree. You know, the whole being able to take yourself seriously sometimes goes a little out the window. People will laugh and make jokes or, you know, things like that. And then the whole group will start laughing if you're posing for a group photo, which happens probably more often than not. But like what Levi was saying, you know, about having those photographers that will help you pose. I can speak from experience. I do a lot of photo work with our Karch photography. She is probably 90% of my photo collection, not gonna lie. If I'm ever at a loss, because I do have a modeling background, sometimes I'm at a loss, you know, especially with like the superhero characters. I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to do now. And she'll be like, okay, well, let's do this pose. You know, and sometimes she'll even pull up her phone and she'll look, you know, for inspiration in poses. I know I have an entire album of pose screenshots, and that's literally what it's called in my phone. And anytime I need inspiration, you know, I'll go there too. So, you know, referencing your characters that you're cosplaying, you know, their signature poses. You'll see it definitely a lot with JoJo's cosplayers. You probably already know exactly which pose I'm talking about. Don't be afraid to, you know, take inspiration from those poses. It's your cosplay, it's you playing it. And I think that all that matters is that you're comfortable with the outcome of the photo.
I'm usually behind the lens rather in front of it, even though lately people have been really on it lately. They really want to take my photo, which is so sweet. I just love that. I'm like, yo, you want a photo of me? Okay. But I think like what they said, like, don't be afraid to just like reference your phone. Like I do that all the time because it's hard. It's really hard. So I pull up my phone, I look at poses and see what the best pose is for like whoever I'm taking photos of. I think it really helps as a photographer to know a little bit about the character. That helps. If you are really passionate about the character, like it's your favorite character as well, like the photos always go way better. So I have a friend, like what I feel like whatever cosplay she makes, I'm like, yeah, that's also my favorite character too. Like, so can we like do a photo shoot? And she's always like, yes, of course. And so like, I feel like when I'm doing her photos, they come out in a different way because I also am passionate about that character. And so I just end up liking those sets a lot more, or whatever characters I like, you know? If I like the character, the photos always end up way better. Or if I know a lot about the character, they end up better.
Yeah, I want to expand a little bit on what she's talking about. I feel like also if you're working with a photographer and they have this vision for this project, I know Levi and I both have modeled for her on a specific project. So she was like, just show up. Like, I'll dress you guys, I will pose you guys, but I want you guys to be this specific picture. Having a photographer that has that vision that can, you know, help create this just magnificent composite photo, which she's really good at, by the way, helps 10 out of 10. Like, it definitely can make that process seem easier. So, you know, if it is something that you're just now getting into, you know, and you want to get that experience, see if there's photographers in your area that have projects going on, you know, be like, hey, I'm trying to, you know, stick my toes in the water a little bit. I want to get some experience, but I'm not really sure, you know, where to start. You know, can I help you with this project? You know, how can I help you bring your vision to life? Go ahead.
I was going to say, also be safe in that as well.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, I became most comfortable in front of the camera with Rachel because I've become acquainted with her, friends with her. There's some sessions that not so much. So it's also, you know, being comfortable and having someone that's trustworthy or...
And you can say no.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're allowed to say no, but
Yeah.
FYI. If you're modeling, you can say no.
and
Oh, yeah.
beyond that, like, I know I will practice a pose for the day. Could be if people do want to take pictures of me with me during the day, I'll have a pose like I'll go with, or two like that the character does. So kind of practice that beforehand as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say too, there are a lot of photographers that are ready to take your photo and they're excited to do it. And like it's kind of like part of the cosplay journey is you're also a model because
Yeah.
everyone's your photo. And usually people know that. And usually people ask you. And it's usually a really normal exchange and all of that. I think sometimes we forget that photography is also an art form. And so it does take drive, it does take passion, it does take time. Even people who are possibly using their phones, they might, I think sometimes people forget that too. So like be patient with your photographers and understand that they're also artists. So that's just my plug to help the photographers, because I know that they don't always get considered as artists, but they really are.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a photographer, videographer myself. Yeah, please be
Yeah.
patient with us sometimes.
Yeah.
It takes us a little bit sometimes to get going too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, I kind of want to wrap this up. Again, thank you for your time. I'd like to let you plug and share any resources for newcomers, or just maybe some places, maybe intermediate and advanced folks, like, hey, maybe you haven't heard of this place. Kind of give us some suggestions of where to go.
You got to go to Soonercon because they have workshops
Yes.
there.
Absolutely, Soonercon. For sure.
Conventions and panels, 100%.
Like there's so many cool panels and workshops. That's one of the really cool things about Soonercon is they have workshops that you can actually learn how to do some of these techniques. And I have been to a lot of conventions with that. They have a lot of them where they just talk about it. But you can learn how to do stuff there, which is super cool.
We do build days all the time. We have
Yes.
friends that like random friends. They're like, I don't know how to do this. We'll have a build day.
Yep.
So like, get together with your friends, lean on each other. But the community is really where it's at. Like, I wouldn't have learned some of the things I have without the community that's around me. So.
Yeah, and it's not even the physical community either. It also incorporates that virtual community. Like I know he mentioned earlier, watching a YouTube video to figure out how to do something. Those build days that we do, I had a very good friend of mine call me one day and said, I want to make chainmail. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but come over and we'll figure it out. So he shows up at like noon, him and his girlfriend, and we didn't leave my kitchen table until 3 a.m. after he had gotten home from work at midnight. There was, we were watching hockey, we were just living our best lives, but he started his chainmail and we figured that out. I know when I built my Urza build back in 2022, I very heavily relied on YouTube tutorial videos from big cosplayers. And I probably say this funny because Rachel corrects me every time I say it, but Kamui Cosplay on YouTube
Kamui.
is absolutely one of my favorites. She gives in my opinion, some of the best beginner tips and tricks.
She stays on like the whole time we're building.
Even after the build, I was watching one of their Twitch streams, and right before they went live, they had their comments open, and I went right into those comments and I just blabbed my heart out, like, hey, you have no idea who I am, but it's pronounced Sith Princess because I spell it without vowels in some of my gaming stuff. And I told her the whole story, about literally watching her and Benny for 8 weeks, and she shouted me out and was like, oh my God, Sith Princess, like that's so cool. And I cried for an hour because one of my favorite cosplayers had said my name on her YouTube channel or her Twitch. But like relying on that virtual environment also, learning different things from different creators who might do things differently. Like I know when I build with foam a certain way, I can go to Rachel for advice and she, will give me different advice than what I've done before, relying on the entirety of that community 100%.
I also have I call her my sewing bully because she'll look at my seams and tell me if if I didn't do something properly, and she tells me I did well.
Oh yeah, she'll
but
grill him.
I know there's a lot of great resources online that are free. Punish Props Academy is a great one. There are, if you want to get into 3D printing, there's free files online. There are free Pepakura patterns. There's free sewing patterns. They do Humble Bundles all the time where we
Yeah, Humble
downloaded
Bundles are nice.
Kinpatsu cosplay.
Yes.
They had a big
and-
humble bundle
Yeah.
recently. It was awesome, and it had like a bunch of Kamui cosplay pattern. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
bought it, and I was
I've-
like, oh,
Yes.
oh, this
I
is
have
great.
so many books on my hard drive right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
With armor and sewing patterns and wigs styling tutorials, and there's just so much available online, and I'm thankful that it is that way today
Yes.
because that's how I learn everything is YouTube.
Yeah, and like, where do you find that? It's like some of it you have to ask the community. Like, oh, here, or people love to share. By the way, everybody loves to help. Everybody loves to share. I've never run into a point where I was like, "How did you make that?" They always tell you. They love to tell you, which is super cool because you get to learn yourself. So you can be
Yes.
like, "Oh my gosh, I just loved that. How did you get it to be so sturdy?"
I do
Oh,
that
I
a
used
lot.
a dowel rod to make it more sturdy. So whatever they end up saying, right? So, which is really neat. And then a lot of them are just different ways that people do it, and all of them work in their own way. It's super neat. So, I think it's really just talking to people honestly,
Yes.
and just seeing what they do and learning from them and watching videos, going on TikTok, watching those little shorts that people put up. That helps too.
All right. Well, before we leave, if you wouldn't mind reintroducing yourselves, plugging your socials and your website, whatever you want to say.
So again, Levi, I go by Levicious Cosplay. It's LEVICIOUS Cosplay. It's on Instagram, Facebook. It's the same thing everywhere.
I'm Sith Princess Cosplays. On Instagram, there's an underscore, so it's Sith Princess _cosplays. It's the same on Facebook also.
And I am Rachel, and my socials everywhere are just Karch Photography.
All right. And thank you again so much for watching this episode of Art and Victory. I want to invite you to come out to Soonercon June 21st through the 23rd at the Embassy Suites Hotel and Conference Center here in Norman, Oklahoma. Thank you again, for panelists, for speaking on cosplay, and thank you for watching, and good night and happy adventures.
Bye.
I was going to say something too. I was like, we'll
Thanks
be
for having
there.
us.
We're going to be there at Soonercon.
Be there, be square.